Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Happy Sunday, everybody. We normally take Sundays off, but there has just been so much to cover from this week and over the weekend that I'm putting together an extra special episode today. I hope you're enjoying your time off. Let's move through the developments now. To begin, we need to discuss natural disasters hitting the country. On Friday, in the eastern Shandong province, 5 people were killed and nearly 100 injured when a tornado ripped through a town. According to state-run Xinhua media, 2,820 homes were damaged by the tornado. Emergency services are currently conducting, quote, post-disaster disposal and on-site cleanup, end quote. China averages fewer than 100 tornadoes per year, far less frequent than, say, the US, but this has been an especially deadly year for these weather phenomena. In April, a tornado struck the southern city of Guangzhou, killing at least 5 people. Other regions of the country are also grappling with extreme weather conditions, as severe drought and record temperatures scorch the north, while heavy rains hit the south. A dike breach in Dongting Lake in Hunan province occurred Friday evening, causing flooding in the area and necessitating the relocation of about 5,000 residents. Rainstorms are expected in the northeastern provinces of Liaoning and Jilin over the weekend, with areas in Sichuan, Shanxi, Shandong and Henan bracing for heavy rain in the next 2 days. Indeed, yesterday, Saturday, Beijing approved the release of $74 million of additional emergency funds for flood control and disaster relief measures. The Ministry of Finance said in a statement that most of the funds are earmarked for 9 provinces, including central Hunan, Hubei, Anhui, and Jiangxi, to help local authorities search, rescue, and relocate disaster victims. But next, we move from natural disasters to man-made ones. The housing crisis. According to the latest data released by China Residence Information Circle's Research Center, China's top 100 developers' spending on purchasing land use rights fell 40% in the first 6 months from a year earlier, with builders still facing a drop in sales, investment and financing, despite Beijing issuing real estate market supporting policies in recent months. This is, of course, on top of a collapse in 2023. Only 30 of the top 100 builders bought land in the first half of this year, with 12 spending more than 10 billion yuan, $1.4 billion, and 5 other 20 billion yuan, compared with 15 and 9 a year ago, respectively. Chinese financial media outlet Yicai writes that from the supply and demand side, if the decline in developers' land purchases continues, there may be fewer new homes in the future. Quote, the real estate market faces a supply glut, so less supply will drive the market back to balance, end quote. We remember covering last month that the inventory of housing across the country is so big that it would take the nation on average 24 months to catch up, even with no new housing supply. The outlet adds that developers remain conservative towards the future market and that developers prefer first and second tier cities due to market uncertainties, further exacerbating the disparity between the wealthy coastal regions and the vast poor interior. Yicai's authors wrote, quote, land prices are robust in first and second tier cities. The per floor area cost in first tier cities jumped over 15% in the first half of this year and the second half of last year and rose 7.7% from a year earlier. That in second tier cities climbed 5.4% from the second half of last year, while that in third and fourth tier cities dropped about 20% in the second half of last year and from a year ago, end quote. If you're enjoying today's episode of China Update, don't forget to hit the like button. Liking, sharing, and subscribing are all helps for the channel. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. Next up, we briefly touch on ideology. Recently, General Secretary Xi Jinping spoke at the so-called conference marking the 70th anniversary of the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. The 5 principles are 1. Mutual respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity. 2. Mutual non-aggression. 3. Mutual non-interference in each other's internal affairs. 4. Equality and mutual benefit. And 5. Peaceful coexistence. Veteran China analyst Bill Bishop discussed the ideology and Xi's speech on it this week. observing, quote, "In a reminder of the deep continuity between the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence and the PRC's current push to reshape the global order," Xi linked the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence to his community with a shared future for mankind, saying, "The vision of building a community with a shared future for mankind carries forth the same spirit of the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. Both are rooted in traditional Chinese values such as be kind to your neighbor, seek amity through integrity, and promote harmony among other nations. Both attest to China's diplomatic tenets of self-confidence, self-reliance, justice, protection of the disadvantaged, and benevolence." She also said that the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence center on the principle of sovereign equality, and on that basis they promote equal rights, equal opportunities, and equal norms for every country. They reject the big subduing the small, the strong bullying the weak, and the rich exploiting the poor. That would seem hard to square with Xi's refusal to condemn Putin's invasion of Ukraine, however, and the PRC's support for Russia to help it sustain its invasion. But perhaps this articulation of turning the vision for peace and security into reality offers the conceptual flexibility for Xi to say, "We need to uphold the principle of sovereign equality with a straight face." End quote. Now, even if this ideology of peaceful coexistence is sincere, it only applies to other states, and Beijing doesn't view Taiwan as a different state, but rather part of China, and thus an internal matter. With that in mind, we end today's video on the theme of Taiwan and the risk of conflict. Recently, Jin Canrong, Vice Dean and Professor at the School of International Studies of Renmin University in Beijing, Deputy Director of the Center for American Studies, and an outspoken and popular nationalist commentator, published a piece arguing that China needs to better prepare to take Taiwan by force. He argues that armed unification is becoming increasingly likely, but now is not the time to act. He writes that China still has much to prepare ahead of such a potential military campaign and the international repercussions that would result. It is useful to note the observations of such an influential voice in China to get an idea of the nature of the discourse around this critical topic among elite voices in Beijing. As we examine the piece, we remember that this is a very sensitive topic to discuss in China, so Jin is employing very indirect and careful language. He is very frank, too, about China's various weaknesses and vulnerabilities. Regular viewers will also notice that many of the main points will be similar to what we covered earlier this week from an American scholar, discussing this very theme with a Western audience. The excellent Sinification newsletter has provided a good translation of this piece from Jin Canrong, and we end by quoting selected excerpts from it directly. On the issue of Taiwan, looking at the current situation objectively and from various perspectives, although mainland China has always considered peaceful reunification to be its preferred option, I, as an observer, believe the likelihood of reunification through non-peaceful means is higher. So we must prepare ourselves for this. The key to preparing for non-peaceful reunification is military readiness. The recent Joint Sword 2024A military exercises had one notable feature compared with former exercises: a cold start, meaning that they were not announced in advance. Once they were announced, the troops were already nearby. Furthermore, these military exercises covered a wider area, took place closer to Taiwan, involved a larger number of troops, and had a stronger flavor of actual combat. Realistically speaking, the means currently employed by the PLA's Eastern Theater Command are already sufficient. Of course, if we do take action, the People's Liberation Army might want to handle it more impressively. To do this, they need to prepare for the worst-case scenario in which the United States and its allies would spare no effort when intervening. Furthermore, military enthusiasts probably know that amphibious sea-to-land assaults are the most difficult type of warfare. Taiwan's defense system is very good because it was improved continuously during the two Jiang's era, i.e. Chiang Kai-shek and Chiang Ching-kuo, and has gone on being enhanced ever since. Add to that substantial support from the US. This has led some military experts to believe that Taiwan's defense system surpasses even that of Israel. Bearing in mind Taiwan's strong defensive capabilities and the inherent difficulty of conducting amphibious warfare, coupled with a full-scale intervention by the US and its allies, we must acknowledge that liberating Taiwan by force is not an easy task. Of course, I also believe that our PLA has many undisclosed strategies, and that they are working hard on these. But despite the modernization of our military making very good progress, We have not fought an actual war for many years now, and we must prepare ourselves for this. The second most important preparation for non-peaceful reunification is economic readiness. Economically, China currently faces a major problem: our lack of economic strategic autonomy. Regarding the size of China's economy, if based on the constant exchange rate of 2011, China's GDP is 79% of that of the US. When using the current exchange rate, it is 65%. And if based on purchasing power parity, we fluctuate between 120 to 160%, thus exceeding the US's GDP. So the size of China's economy can be said to be substantial. But China's economy is also quite fragile. We need to import food, and with 169 million tons imported last year, we are the world's biggest food importer. In terms of oil, our dependency on foreign sources is 73%. For natural gas, it is 42%. We also lack many minerals. Further, another major weakness of China's economy is its lack of markets. Overall, China's manufacturing and product quality are excellent. However, we face a troubling predicament. Our domestic market cannot absorb so many products, so we have to rely on international markets, especially the American market. For this reason, we subsidize our products with export tax rebates amounting to over 1 trillion yuan annually. With insufficient domestic demand and a lack of diversified markets, I describe this as lacking economic strategic autonomy. This is a problem we need to address. Jin then uses extra careful language to make two deeply sensitive points. In addition to military and economic preparations, political unity is also essential. Currently, opinions in China on whether or not to adopt non-peaceful means for our reunification with Taiwan are not yet completely aligned. Furthermore, we must strive to gain the understanding of the international community. Many countries fully support our One China principle, but we need to continue to work on this. These 2 points are critical to take note of. Jin is basically saying, 1, there may not be enough support domestically within China itself for a war over Taiwan, and 2, more obviously, that the world would not accept such a move. We continue with the direct quote. In conclusion, the issue of Taiwan is a unique challenge in the process of the great rejuvenation of the Chinese race. Currently, this challenge is intensifying, not because of mainland China, but due to the United States and to the pro-independence Taiwanese authorities. In a sense, the development of the situation is beyond our control, and if they make a move, we might have no choice but to respond. I must emphasize again, although we are determined to achieve reunification, our preferred option is still peaceful reunification. However, the reality is that our hope for peaceful reunification is dwindling. Thus, we need to prepare ourselves for reunification through non-peaceful means. This includes military and economic preparations, as well as preparations with regards to our domestic politics and gaining international understanding. All these require serious work. Here ends the direct quote and today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Sunday. Once again, my apologies for interrupting. Have a good weekend, a restful weekend, and I will see you all for a new week tomorrow.